Thank you for joining the Disruptive Innovation Festival 2017, the online festival of ideas that asks the question, what if we could redesign everything? I'm Rose, and I'll be your host on today's session on what is the second day of the DIF. Yesterday we saw the DIF Live launch with Anne Pettifor, Mark Stevenson and Tim Harford. Of course, as always, you can catch up on the DIF Live launch from yesterday. Just head to thinkdiff.co. Now, you may recognise today's guests from a number of places within the foundation and the DIF. The School of Disruptive Design, founded and led by Leila Ajaralu, is an experimental knowledge lab for creatives, rebels, change agents who want to be proactive, I guess, in redesigning the world so it works better for everyone. They work with designers, they work with artists, innovators, social entrepreneurs, and world-changing types. So you can see the similarities in who they work with compared to the DIF and to the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. Now, last year they did a few sessions with us, which went fantastically. And you might also recognise Leila from, she was one of our headline speakers during this summer at the Ellen MacArthur Foundation's annual summit. So during this year's DIF, Unschool, Leila and the team will be running 4 sessions, which will feature the post-disposable challenge, which will see how quickly all 7.4 billion people on the planet can create a post-disposable future. So I'm super excited to learn more. So what I'm going to do is hand over to Leila and Emma for them to tell you more.
Thanks, Rose. Hello, world. Great to be with you here. I'm really excited about today. We are launching our post-disposable design challenge, and I'm here with Emma, and we're having quite a global presentation to you today. I'm in Lisbon in Portugal. Emma is in Goa in India, and tomorrow we will be in the same place. So we are going to run through a presentation and jump back and forth. You'll hear my voice or Emma's voice, and you'll see us a little bit too, but stick with us. We have some really exciting stuff to share with you all today. I'm super excited personally about this, so I hope that I can help get your minds activated and excited about the systems change that we can make happen together. I am going to start a presentation now, just bear with me. And let's go. Cool. So, post-disposable DIF. Really, really happy to be part of the DIF again this year. We love what the DIF are doing, and Ellen MacArthur are helping to advance the circular economy. We're big into systems change and circular systems design. But today, what we're really going to talk about, Emma and I, is how we can redesign the world so it works better for all of us. Emma and I have been working together for a while. Emma is a designer, among many other things. Some of the illustrations you'll see in our beautiful deck is by the hand of Emma. And of course, I am Leila. I am the founder of both the Unschool and Disrupt Design, and my work is really about pushing the boundaries of how we create the things that we need as humans and how we can meet our needs into the future in more sustainable, regenerative, and circular ways. So I founded Disrupt because I think that design is one of the most interesting tools we have to design the world. And I'm really interested in helping to collaborate and connect with other creative types in forging this path. And at the moment, we do a lot of work with other organizations who are interested in transitioning to the circular economy, and other organizations or individuals who are creatives who want to create tools and resources that help people think and perform differently in the world. So basically, we make tools for change, like this really cool one that Emma and I collaborated on, which is the Superpower Activation Kit. You can download it for free from online.unschools.co. It's 12 everyday superpowers that you can do in order to think and do differently in when it comes to systems change and sustainability. Actually, the reason we made this was because I was bestowed with the fantastic title of Champion of the Earth by the United Nations Environment Programme late last year. And Emma and I had a conversation in one of our team meetings about whether or not I got special superpowers with my title. And we realized that everybody has superpowers to change the world. So it's been really cool to hear people's stories. So share with us your ideas about how your everyday actions can help change the world. We work work with individuals through the Unschool from all over this planet. It's one of the most rewarding and crazy projects I've personally ever done. We founded the Unschool 3 years ago. We have over 350 alumni from 39 countries. And in the last 3 years, we've run programs in, I think, 12 countries. And that's why we are going to India tomorrow, because on Saturday, we'll be running our 8th international program in Mumbai in India. So you can follow along on social media and check out the chaos and the cool stuff that we get up to in exploring systems change and sustainability. At the Unschool, we basically work off these 3 pillars as tools for changing the world. We look at systems and, of course, sustainability sciences and how we understand the relationship between human decisions and the environment, and obviously the equity and the social impact as well. And then, of course, design. Design is essentially the tool that helps create the world. We teach the disruptive design methodology and the method set. You can check out all of this stuff online. I'm not going to go into it too much now. You can listen to hours and hours of my dulcet tones if you are so inclined on our online school, where I go through all of the different knowledge sets. But basically, the reason I personally have created all of these things and more projects in the pipeline is because I believe that we can all participate in designing a world that works better for all of us. And I think that there is so much potential that is just unlocked when we see our own agency. When we discover how each individual agent within this beautiful complex world that we share has the capacity to impact and affect positive outcomes through the things that they choose to do. No matter what their job is, no matter what their career is, everybody has the power to affect change. I'm a huge fan of Buckminster Fuller. He says, if you want to predict the future, you design it. And that's really what we're here to do today. Here to talk about the idea of becoming a problem lover, not an avoider, and to really look at the power of design and how design influences our lives. Emma, you're a designer. Tell us about your perspective on design and how powerful it is.
Hi, thanks, Layla, and hi, everybody else. Yeah, so I drew this slide here that you can see to illustrate that as designers, what's really critical is for us to see our problems and design solutions in a multitude of different perspectives. It's very common as designers for us to want to rush to solve issues and problems that we're presented with. It might be just deadlines that are affecting us, or the rush to solve things. It's like very satisfying. But in order to come to a solution that's very sustainable and has longevity, we need to become like miners of these problems and figure out all the different aspects and nodes, agents and factors that contribute to the initial issue, so that we can get to something, a solution that's not just a Band-Aid solution, but something that actually affects the system and resolves the problem for the long term. I like to think about it as like dating these problems, falling in love with them, getting to know them, taking them out, getting to know all their different sides and perspectives, and then moving from there into the next stage. We all make design decisions every day, whether it's what clothes we put on, what plates we buy for our house. So these are kind of ideas that we can all bring into our lives when we're addressing problems, some which are very big ones like pollution, which Layla's going to talk to you a little bit about.
Yeah, obviously pollution, we experience it and we don't like it. If you've ever been to a country that unfortunately doesn't have great air pollution standards, you can feel it viscerally when you go to breathe as your lungs kind of react to the particles. Globally, air pollution is one of the world's biggest killers. It kills more people than many of the global pandemics and health impacts that we have. And we really need to think about pollution as an externality or a waste product of our industrial processes. One huge issue that we are all, I think, extremely concerned about is the magnitude of the ocean plastic waste issue. It's unfathomable, actually. I was just looking at some graphs on the rate of growth of the amount of plastic consumed and wasted recently, and it's on an exponential curve. So there's a lot that we can do, and this is really what the Post-Disposable Challenge is about, is helping to address the unintended consequences of our easy and convenient lives. What we like to look at the Unschool is how we can see the solution in every problem. Every problem has the opportunity to unlock its own solution. And so we really looked at this problem of disposability, of plastic, of all of these environmental issues that affect us and hurt us and make us frustrated. And we decided that one of the critical points of intervention is the way in which we frame and engage with the issue. Systems thinking lets us understand that essentially everything we do has an outcome, an action, a reaction. We know this, right? Like if you're having dinner with your family and you say something to your aunt, who then gets upset and then says something to your mom, and next thing you know, there's like some big fight happening and you didn't mean it. And all of these kinds of cause and effect and relationships affect us in so many ways, on so many levels. And essentially that's the reality of the ocean plastic waste problem and pollution. It's an outcome to our actions. So we need to disrupt the way our actions are built and the systems that sustain the unsustainability. Basically, one of the huge issues, and no one likes to talk about this, is consumption. Our rate of consumption as a species on this planet has exponentially grown, and it's caused huge problems. Emma?
Yeah, so we all need things, of course, clothing, chairs, even plastic bags in the grocery store and the ones that end up on the street, unfortunately. But it's the quantity and ability to recapture those resources that makes the huge impacts. So even somebody like me, like I have a kitchen cupboard full of plastic bags, even though I am very conscious about bringing reusable ones, but they end up, you know, something gets wet, it's raining, who knows. For fashion, for example, even just regular clothing, the average in North America, the amount of outfits you used to have in the 30s was 9, now it's 30. We throw away 65 pounds a year of clothing, 40% of the food that we produce goes to waste. So it's this allocation of like how much we demand for the consumption part and then what we do with the extra, or when we're done at the end of life of these issues. We produce much more than we need, and the systems that we've designed to deal with it all is part of the problem that we've designed ourselves into.
Yeah, and that system is the linear system, right? So basically, humans have created a linear system in a non-linear world. And that's really where a lot of these issues come about, that we don't value the environmental impacts associated with the resources that nature provides us. So actually, Emma has this beautiful illustration she drew a while ago that I love to use in my presentations. I'm just going to jump back to it here. That explains the linear economy. Emma, you want to talk us through it?
Yeah, sure. So I created this to illustrate that exact thing, the linear way that we design things. So we extract things, the raw materials and resources that we need, and then we manufacture them into the end product. And there's other things in between there, transportation, etc., packaging. And then at the end of its life, what happens to the stuff that we've now used? Traditionally, we don't have a solution for this. It ends up in the landfill. There is a small amount that goes into recycling and so on. But at the moment, there's nobody necessarily responsible for it. And the UN currently says we're dumping about 2.1 billion tons of waste every year, 99% of which is within 6 months of its lifespan. So that's a huge amount that's not getting put back into the system or reused or put to some kind of regenerative use.
Yeah, and basically what this is, the technical term is externalities. If those of you who are listening who are into economic theory, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And for everybody else, an externality is basically something that is not valued or accounted within a system. And that is how we perceive nature and all of the resources and the impacts of our actions. We don't take into account what having a healthy, thriving planet actually offers us, which is, you know, the shit that sustains our life, right? So the fresh air that keeps pumping our blood through our body every time we inhale, the food that gives us sustenance to like do our work and have fun, and of course, the water that 70-something% of our bodies are made out of. None of that is currently accounted for in the linear system. And that really is, I think, why we have this psychological ability to completely deflect responsibility around dealing with the magnitude of the waste crisis that we have at our forefront. You know, a lot of today's problems, as Peter Senge says, is yesterday's solutions. At some point, people thought that there was a great idea was to move to a disposable system. Obviously, there were economic incentives, but a lot of the reasons behind this is a desirability. It's perceived as being more successful if we live in a fast-paced, hyper-consumer world. It's convenience as well, and there's necessity, right? Like there is genuine necessity and need for people in many countries in this world to have fresh potable water because the water that comes out of the tap is poisonous. So we need to think about the bigger system issues, not just the individual choices and decisions that we have. And that's really what this post-disposable movement is about. How can we design a future that works better for all of us? That is the challenge that we have at our forefront as individuals, as agents within companies and organizations. We have the opportunity to create the future. Nobody has defined it. There is no one who has written what will happen next. We make it up based on the actions or inactions we take. And what I mean by that is if you choose to not participate in constructing a world that you want to live in, then you're giving up the power and authority for somebody else to design the future. Design is everywhere, right? Like basically Emma was talking about some of the statistics that we have with our waste, but that is the byproduct of us wanting, needing, and owning many things, right? I love how old this cell phone image is. It's great. But essentially our lives are defined by the designed experience. Design is, I've always said this, is one of the most powerful silent social scripters that exists in the world. Every single second of our lives is scripted in some way by a designed artifact or experience. From the moment you're born to the moment you die, the material world forms and influences you on a both very obvious way and cognitively subtle ways. I always say we design the world as humans, and then in turn the world designs us. It's impactful and it's persuasive. If you're interested in this stuff, you should check out some of the work that's going on at the moment from Silicon Valley, the descendants who are talking about, the dissidents who are talking about the incredibly manipulative tactics that the technology sector is using to enforce your allegiance to their products, continuous scroll and the way in which things are designed and the layout on a user experience on a web page. It's super manipulative, and it's very, very, very dangerous to think about where we're at and where we need to go. But really what I want to talk about is this idea of changing the systems, because that's the level that we can make the most effective change at. We have become a hyper-disposable society. That is the reality. No matter where you are on this planet, there is waste. We have created this product addiction that enables us to continually consume based on our immediate needs without considering the impacts, but the impacts are far and wide. One of the massive issues, though, is that recycling, closing the loop just at one end, does not solve the problem. Emma?
Yeah, so recycling is something that we talk about as validating waste. So it lulls us into the story that we've done something good, we can put it into our waste bin and feel very like we've made a difference and we've contributed to helping the world. And not to say that we shouldn't recycle, of course, but it does have the effect of salving our immediate guilt. Our job is done when we put that in, we're busy, we have families, jobs, lives, etc. But in fact, those parts of us that are doing the recycling is not enough to keep up with those consumption habits that we were talking about. So what we need is something that is more systemic and doesn't just resolve the immediate problem, but designs in a system so that we don't have to deal with this issue. And then we also don't have to deal with the guilt that comes with it when we have those easy solutions.
Yeah, I always hate this. I mean, for those of you who are watching who know my work and maybe have seen my TED Talk, you'll know that I'm kind of a little bit obsessed with bags and these disposable items and what the impact is across their lives. And whenever I'm at a supermarket and I refuse a bag, which is pretty much 90% of the time, I'll always have someone say, oh, but it's paper. And I'll be like, and what does that mean exactly? Does that mean that it's better for the planet? Because paper can only be recycled 5 times before it's lost from the system. And besides, we have to cut down trees. And that's a habitat for species. Anyway, as you can tell, clearly I'm not the person you want to mess with when it comes to this. But it's this placating of the issue that perpetuates it. Where we have very effective recycling markets in the world, we have a net increase in the use of disposable products because of these kinds of sentiments, where people think it's recyclable, thus it absolves any of the environmental issues, so it's completely fine. However, you have to think about it in a systems perspective, because if you are a producer of, if you're a recycler of, say, plastic bottles or paper products, you are motivated in any system to continue to perpetuate the use of the raw material that you are getting for free, because your economic model is based on that. So when you just look at recycling as a solution without redesigning the systems around recycling and without considering that a producer of a product that is disposable should also be at the responsibility end of the end of life, thus continuing to close that loop, unfortunately, we don't really solve the problems. So recycling is fantastic. I'm not saying let's not recycle, but I am saying we need to think more critically about using recycling as a simple solution to a complex problem. So what are we going to do about it? That's the most interesting thing. And I'm sure many of you sitting there listening to this are thinking, wait, they're telling us a bunch of problems now. Just what I want to hear. I want to hear more problems about the world. Well, there are a lot of problems. We know it. The environment is suffering from human actions. I love this story of the guy who designed the K-cup, the coffee cup system that has one single shot of coffee. He wanted to solve the problem of coffee waste, and he actually developed this system with the single-use pods, thinking that it would help reduce the amount of coffee in the US that was thrown away, and sold this for not that much money to the company that now last year produced 60 billion of these products that are not designed to be recycled. They basically entomb some organic material in a lot of plastic for the rest of eternity. And the guy who founded this concept and then sold it totally regrets it. He has massive regrets for the environmental impact associated with what he created, not realizing how it would be thrust upon the consumer market. And so it's a classic case of good intentions don't always lead to good outcomes unless you think about the full systems perspective. So waste has become socially normalized. We have to think about the systems perspective. We need to look at the way in which we can dramatically change the delivery of services. I'm not saying we should go back in time. I think we should move forward into a world that is regenerative, circular. Most things are designed to be thrown away. The more we buy, the more we have to extract, the more waste. That's just basic laws of economics and physics. But as we're talking about all of this stuff, I want to ask you a really serious question. Is this making you feel bad? Because I'm kind of trying to make you feel bad. I could have made you feel a lot worse. But essentially, I want you to understand something really important. And that is that when you feel bad about something cognitively, most of the time, our brains like to avoid it. It makes us feel disempowered. It makes us feel angry, and anger is a disabler a lot of the times. It makes us feel overwhelmed and insignificant to the magnitude of the problems that we're facing. Humans have all of these cognitive biases that impact the way we perceive the world and our own role within the world. There are these shared cognitive mistakes, basically. I call them cognitive glitches that everyone has. And sociologists and cognitive scientists and behavioral economists are finding more and more of these shared cognitive glitches. But one of the most important one is the idea of negativity bias, where essentially humans avoid engaging with things that make them feel bad. We focus more on the negative experience. So when we encounter something that we don't like, it hurts us viscerally, physically. Our brains react to it. And when we lose something or we feel like we're going to lose something, we avoid it. So all of these things compound to make our experience when we hear terrible stories about how screwed the world is, to actively disengage. Even if you're an extremely passionate person about it, you feel often overwhelmed and insignificant. So the issue with all of this stuff is that the negativity bias clouds our perspective of action, and it allows us to feel that there is not one thing, or there's not enough that we could do to address the extreme magnitude of the problem that we're facing. There's a lot of scientific research that's coming out saying how dangerous using the fear factor is in communicating issues of such significant importance, such as the environment. So that's why we want to reframe this. If you talk about dealing with waste, a lot of the conversations is zero waste, reduction, it's taking away. The words used to define the action is to take something away from you. But I want to talk about building something new. You know, Socrates said, if you want to change something, don't invest your energy in fighting the existing reality. Invest it in designing something new that makes the old obsolete. And that's what we're proposing with the Post-Disposable Challenge, a global challenge to redesign all of the systems from individual choices through to government structures to help us design a future that not only works better for us all, but is thriving with the possibility of regeneration. So essentially, our goal is to create a movement that dramatically and quickly reduces these massive environmental and social burdens by empowering individuals and organizations to take action towards a post-disposable future, designing things that work well, that are circular, that are regenerative. So do you believe that we can go post-disposable? What do you reckon, Emma?
Well, we believe it. We see it all the time with our alumni community the people that participate in our programs. So we're passionately devoted to this, and we put out the call to our community, which we're going to see some of in this festival over the next few weeks, which we're super, super excited about to share with you. I saw some of the questions coming in from Dawn and Paige asking about ways that the community can address these things and everyday actions. And we're going to show you guys some of those in the next few weeks.
Yeah, and the thing is, I mean, of course, there's simple actions, you know, like a reusable water bottle. This is not a wine bottle. Everyone thinks I'm drinking a wine bottle. I just need a lot of hydration. I recently got myself, yeah, that's great. I got myself a reusable straw, which is fantastic for drinking cocktails in. I was actually sharing a story before that I was having a cocktail last night in a bar that insisted on using disposable plastic cups. And so I said to the bartender, I refused to have a drink. I'm not going to buy a drink unless you can find me a reusable cup. And so he went and found one, washed it, made me a really nice cocktail. I put my straw in it, and everyone else was jealous of how sexy my cocktail looked. And so then they all started asking. I was like, yes, post-disposable, it works. And that's really what this campaign's about. It's about asking, it's about doing at the individual and at the mass level, right? So we are actually going to be launching an activation kit at the end of the diff. But in the meantime, I just want to jump back into explaining a few more of the decisions that we have around the post-disposable challenge and how it works and how you can get involved. So basically, we're interested in challenging all 7.4 billion of us. That's how many people currently live on this planet that we all share. And I want to know how quickly we can get there. That's my personal challenge. Like, how quickly will it be? I wish we could take bets on this, you know. Can we get there in 3 years? Because that would be awesome. We could help address some of those big issues like climate change and ocean pollution. But essentially what we're trying to do here is we're trying to reframe the future narrative, because so much of the narratives that exist, whether it be from environmental organizations or from, you know, corporations or governments, is that the future is a little bit effed up. And I completely disagree with that. No one defines the future. In my mind, the future is beautiful and positive. I've been writing a lot about this recently. You can jump on over to Medium. I wrote a systems thinking series that's been really popular. If you want to learn more about this and you're a reader, check it out. I actually wrote this article, too many words coming out at the same time, on this like ocean plastic waste getting you down, all about the positive reframing. And actually today, right after this, we're launching another article that talks all about this campaign. So if you want to share it with people that you care about, that are excited about this, then please do, because we need everybody to build a movement. We are just interested in seeding change and then seeing how it can grow. So this feeling bad thing is something that we all need to work on redesigning. In fact, a lot of the science shows us that if you want to, once you've addressed a cognitive bias, you can start to reframe it slowly by checking it, challenging yourself every time you feel that the problem is too big, checking to see what small actions you can take in order to overcome that. Whilst, of course, some small actions do actually feel insignificant to the magnitude of the problem, but it's more about how our actions can influence those that are around us as well. So publicly making your actions is extremely important because it's contagious. Positivity is contagious. There's a lot of research that demonstrates that positive emotions, positive actions, thanks to our mirror neurons in our brain, which are the neurons that fire when we see someone smile or frown in front of us. So our brain mimics that experience. So when we see more and more people refusing disposability and its ubiquitousness, it's thrust upon us, refusing that and taking actions, not just recycling, but saying, you know what, I'm not going to have it if I can't have it in a way that's not going to, my needs are going to hurt the planet right now. So this is the global challenge. How quickly can all 7.4 billion of us get there? And what is it that we need to do in order to do that? Well, we need individual and collective actions. Obviously, we need corporations to take responsibility. And in my work, in the work that I do as a global leader at the United Nations in sustainability and the circular economy, I am at the forefront of helping organizations do that. And I'm super excited to continue to work with the pioneering companies who are willing to address the fact that their products are part of the problem and that they're willing to use that problem as an opportunity to leverage change. So all movements need pioneers and visionaries. We need you to get involved. The most immediate thing that you can do is to start to do something right now. Like as soon as you get off this call, what is the first thing that you can swap out a disposable for a reusable in your life and share it with the world? Use the hashtag. Hashtags are really powerful. We saw that with the the recent Me Too campaign. We can make this happen. It's going to take time, but how quickly we get there depends on how many people we can help see the possibility and the opportunity that is in front of us. So if you're ready to go post Disposable, we have some stuff up online, but we are working on this. We are open to volunteers and people helping out. We are releasing an activation kit, which will be a free guide to starting and running your own community activations around this, or company activations, depending on where or how far you are along in your career at the moment. And we'll be releasing that at the end of the diff. We need people to translate. So if you want to translate, help us out, cool. Also, just so you know, I'm running an advanced training for those of you who are listening, who are designers, who are check all the box on the power of design. If you want to do some advanced training with me, I'm running that in January. So feel free to apply. Next week, you won't be hearing from me, but you will be hearing from our awesome community of global change makers and their initiatives, their companies, their projects, their creative interventions that are helping to challenge the status quo with regards to design-led change and the way in which we create and sell our consumer items. Make sure that you're here on November the 24th. We will be back, Emma and I, to launch the activation kit. And we have a Facebook group you can join, and all of the other kind of stuff. We're building the social media stuff. In the meantime, if you want to tweet any questions or anything, feel free to hit us up on social media. But I am actually going to just pop back now to answering some of those questions that you guys have posted. And then let's have a little think about some of the other immediate actions that we can take. So Paige, you asked, if I think, or we think, that normal everyday individuals can really make a big difference in moving the economy. Hells yeah, the economy is individuals. What do you think the economy is? It's just a lot of individuals, a lot of us. I always say that every single dollar or rupee or pound that you spend is a micro moment of change. What you invest in dictates what ends up in the economy. If anyone's worked in marketing, you know that they mainly put products on the market because they think they can convince people, right? So we've seen products like Google Glass die because they're crappy products that look stupid and nobody wants to be perved on by a video when they're having a conversation with someone. So essentially, yes, every individual has the power to affect change. If I am a testament myself, I studied design because I was interested in having a good career. I was like, that sounds fun. I get to solve problems. And I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And in the end, somehow I managed to take what little resources I had as a human and build them into things that make change in the world. And if someone had said that to me, right, when I was younger, I would have laughed at them. I would have definitely laughed if they told me that I would be named champion of the earth. I would have really laughed quite loudly. So I think that you have to think of every action that you take as an opportunity, right? And yeah, we fail and we learn through that. The amount of times I've done stuff or promoted stuff and then later done research and been like, oh, that wasn't good. Emma's got great stories on this because Emma worked in the apparel industry for a long time. I'm outing you here, Emma. Do you want to share one of your excellent failures in learning about trying to be an agent of change?
I mean, there's been so many. But that's the learning process. And I think, especially looking back to when I started, which was 15 years ago, so the world has really changed so much in terms of what we know and how we can all make changes. And there's so many interesting companies doing awesome things right now that wouldn't have been possible without each individual person starting a new company, a social enterprise, voting with their wallet and all that. And when the situation that Layla is talking about is me being a young designer, super passionate, having traveled overseas and working in India and Thailand and China in the factories, and seeing the amount of plastic waste coming over the ocean in the form of shipping bags, and wanting desperately to do something about it because there was millions of these every year coming back and forth. And they were not serving any purpose, really. The retailer threw them away and the consumer never saw them. They were protective. So I decided to see what I could do about it, found a supplier who had these compostable bags, and I thought this was great. We ended up implementing it for a year. It cost us a ton of money, I'm talking tens of thousands of dollars. But when we had an audit done for the environmental impact of the bags, turns out that although on the one side, they're compostable, that's great, but on the other side, once they arrived in the stores in North America and Europe, there was nowhere to put them. So that whole cycle hadn't really been thought through on my side. And it was an innovative new product, and it was an expensive mistake that really like helped catapult me into investigating these things. Like those are the mistakes that we make every day that really like launch a curiosity into, oh, you know, I made this mistake. How can I do better next time? Which is what we're all doing every day.
And the interesting thing for those of you who want to understand the science a little bit about the bag issue that Emma's talking about is that in any bio-based material, there is an increased amount of land use. So there's issues with regards to the land use as well. But also the main issue is the amount of petrochemicals required in order to produce the product. Because obviously in industrial agricultural systems, currently we use tractors and fertilizers. And when you look at the entire life of that product through a life cycle assessment, you discover that there's all of these embodied or hidden environmental costs. And so in some cases, the environmental impact in production can far outweigh the environmental benefit you get from that product being replaced from a bio-based material to another. So I'm not saying that bio-based materials are bad. In fact, in some cases, they're extremely good, especially in cases where you have a massive amount of waste that is going to end up in the environment. And it's also a fantastic product in high durable items. Like there's a number of cases where it makes sense. It's just that relying on what I refer to as environmental folklore, what you feel is good, can sometimes get you into a situation where you are learning, but that's fine. I mean, yeah, it's a costly mistake. You helped also build an industry by making that mistake, let's be honest. And that industry is now learning itself too. A lot of the polylactic acid and the bio-based plastics took this information and changed their production processes to make sure that their product was environmentally beneficial across its entire life, and also started investing in encouraging end-of-life recycling. So we need all of these different agents within the system challenging the status quo. So I'm just going to grab another question here. Okay, we have Mariano. What is your opinion on big companies who don't embrace systems thinking? Well, do you think they don't want to see the full image of their performance? Right. Well, our entire system, other than being linear, is based on reductionism, which is breaking the world down into individual parts so it makes sense and we can measure it and count it, and being counters can, you know, quantify things. And the thing about reductionism is it makes the world extremely easy to deal with versus systems or holistic thinking. When you look at the whole that is full of parts, as well as the parts, it's a lot harder. And most of us have gone through an education system that has encouraged us to think in individual siloed parts rather than in the collective whole. So I think that big companies, I don't blame them. I think that they're just a product of the system and there's opportunity to change. So the most important thing is being willing to embrace the complexity that exists in the world and see complexity as an opportunity to make change. And so the companies that I work with are the ones who somehow have gotten to a point where they're like, oh, wow, we have this huge influence on the planet, and maybe we could actually do something good and still make money and still produce the products that people want, but not do it in a way that's accidentally destroying the planet. And those companies are the pioneers who usually have that one individual, whether it be the CEO, whether it be someone within the organization who has pioneered a diversity in thinking, and they've helped create a culture of opportunity. And that's really where we start to see systems thinking spread like a beautiful virus around organizations to help them flourish and change. I mean, systems thinking came out of organizational change management in the 90s. You know, it came out of MIT and about efficiency and optimization. And so it's actually got a pretty nerdy, like old school business background. How we apply it in solving problems is really about understanding relationships between things and how one thing causes another and how we can influence or affect change within that complexity. Did you want to add something, Emma?
No, I think that's really good. In my experience, I think it's easy to forget that sometimes organizations are made up of individuals. Like we're all out there doing our jobs, and they're not these big monolithic things that are just like doing stuff to us or creating harm or not listening or so on. There's like, it's a collective group that we're all participating in, whether you work for the government or for a big shoe company or a nonprofit or anything. And so, you know, most people want to do good work, right? They want things to be nice. They like
people get up in the morning and they're all like, yeah, I'm going to ruin the planet today. Although maybe maybe a very small select group of people. I think the rest of people actually care about doing something that fulfills them and makes them feel happy and
absolutely. Especially in this day and age when we see so many examples of amazing things going on in the world. You know, we have the internet now, very accessible to see examples of, you can Google like, what can I do about the recycling in my building, for example? Or is there a better alternative for the shipping method of my product that we're making, or so on? So I think that's a really important aspect.
Really know. You can go to Google Scholar and look up the life cyclist.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really nerdy. Go to Google Scholar and look up the life cyclist.
There's even really cool things, like there's a company that does sail shipping right now, but that's a whole other tangent. But yeah, I think it's super important. A sailboat.
That's what you talk to Ellen about that, because she's pretty into sailing. Maybe the Ellen MacArthur Foundation could start a sideline of shipping via sailboat. Wind power, man, wind power. That's the future.
So cool. There's a company doing it back and forth from Europe, and there's some on the west coast of North America. It's like, I'm very excited about that. But yeah, so we're all, what's that?
I said I can tell.
I get very excited about certain things, especially about each person being like an individual who wants to have a good life in these giant companies that we so often deflect the blame onto, and like, oh, they're doing it to us. They're not creating the options for us. But they're a group of people that created that original system in the first place. So it's up to us to help initiate the redesign of those systems that we want to see changed.
Okay, I got another question. You guys, you got a lot of questions going on here. We've only got a few more minutes left, so I'm going to just cherry pick a couple. Which one should I pick? Someone's asking about design thinking and systems thinking in businesses. I think we kind of covered that. I think it's important to know that design thinking is a great tool for understanding like how to engage with people and how to build ideation and creative problem solving, but it doesn't necessarily unto itself give us the tools to figure out how to change the world. And that's really where systems thinking is a really powerful tool and should always be combined. We've done a lot of work and we'll continue to build tools around circular systems design, which is combining systems thinking and design practice in order to challenge the status quo, which is what that advanced training is about. So if you work for a big organization, awesome, get them to send you to our online training on that, because I'm working pretty closely with a small group of people in that training to help them become those amazing agents within these organizations. Because, you know, I get tired. I don't want to do it all myself. And you know, there's not that many of us, so we need to build the capacity for more and more creative people, designers and others, you know, like managers and business people are just as important in the design process. In fact, a lot of the designers I work with, the biggest problems that they face is that they're not responsible for the design brief. The design brief that comes to them has already been created by a sales manager or a marketing person, and they're just like, it's already locked in the environmental problems associated with it. So it's super important we have the whole system working together in an organization to really pioneer that change. Okay, one last question in our last couple minutes. How do you get to volunteer? You can go to the website. We have, if you want to build us a proper website, great, please hit us up, because we're really busy and we're a small group of people at the Unschool. So if you have mad skills in that area, hit us up, but also just in general, translating and other things, just hit us up via hello@disruptdesign.co or hello@unschools.co. The website for Post Disposable is postdisposable.com. You can get us on social media, anywhere else, hit us up. If we don't respond, harass us. It's because we're usually on a program and we get lots of emails. So you can hit us up via any form of internet, and multiple times. We're okay with that. So that's all we have time for, I think, today. I am really grateful yet again for the DIF and all the amazing work that you guys are doing. And I'm super excited to continue to share these stories of creative change makers from around the world. And I look forward to checking out your Post Disposable hashtags on the interwebs.
Perfect. Thanks, Leila. That was awesome. I mean, I think from the amount of questions that are coming online, I'm just having a look now. I mean, we've got a few more that have come in, you know, quite specific to individuals living in different parts of the world, kind of wanting to know, you know, how they can get involved and what they can do individually. So if you guys don't mind kind of going over to your session page on the DIF website and kind of having a look through those questions over the next couple of days, that would be fab. I'm sure kind of everyone watching would really appreciate that. Just a few things that I kind of pulled out, and just like to say, I feel bad.
But you can get over it. Come on,
I can
you can get over
it.
it.
I'll be fine. So just a few things that I initially wrote down. I really liked your quote at the beginning. If you want to predict the future, you have to design it, from Buckminster Fuller, which I thought was really, really good. And also when you said waste has become socially normal, I thought that was really quite powerful. And something that, you know, people can kind of take away individually.
And how we know, Rose, it's become socially normal is that people don't question it anymore, right? So if you go to a cafe and you're sitting down with a real plate and then they give you disposable chopsticks or cutlery, it's actually considered cool rather than like, why am I getting disposable and reusable? It doesn't make any sense. It's thrust upon us rather than us requesting it as a community, as a society.
Yeah, I think we kind of need to get over that almost that awkwardness of being different, which I guess is, you know, is a bit about what the diff's all about, is being different to social norms and to what everything, you know, how everything runs. And actually, if we can get past that, then actually, you know, we can really start.
One of the things we want to create is a badge that you can have in the background of your phone, and you could flash to people. Your phone, don't flash other parts of yourself. And essentially, it would be like a really simple indicator, whether it be to a restaurant or a cafe or to a bartender, that shows that you don't want the disposable straw, you don't want the unnecessary disposable stuff in your life. Because, you know, the other thing that's so weird is, okay, if you do have to get disposable, there's like double bagging, or they throw extra serviettes and things, and we don't need it, and it's just thrust upon us. And a lot of the time people feel socially awkward to then say, actually, you know what, I don't need this. So I do think that we need to get over that. I completely agree.
Yeah, just have a sticker on the back of your phone saying no, that you can just thrust in people's faces when they give you
not that aggressively. Maybe with a smile, because
yeah,
nice when you smile.
I bought a bag the other day and they tried to give me a bag for my bag.
No.
I was like, I don't need a bag for my bag, but thank you. And then we had like a laugh about it.
Crazy.
But it's like, it's so normal for that. And then we even feel good about things like throwing things in the recycling. It's because of the normalization of it. We're like, oh, I just did something good, when in fact we're reinforcing that system.
If you want to keep that high that you get from recycling, just start organic recycling, because one of the quickest ways of us reducing methane emissions from landfill is getting all of the organic material out of there. So get yourself a worm farm.
And maybe that's a great thing to leave it on. Get yourself a worm farm. No, thank you. That was brilliant. And we've had some really good questions, as I say, coming in, and some really good numbers of viewers. So
Rose, I give you the first challenge. In the next 24 hours, I want to see a post-disposable tweet from you on what you've done to swap out a disposable.
This is unexpected. I can do that though. I'm gonna have to do it now. There's many people watching online. You know exactly what I'm doing.
Totally challenged.
Start tweeting at Ellen MacArthur Foundation at Think if she has not in the next 24 hours done some post-disposable action.
We're socially implicating you.
You guys are not being invited back. No, I'm joking.
That's you.
Right. So on that note, you will see my tweet at some point. Gosh, I have to I'm going to think about this now. But thank you, Layla and Emma, for your time today. I think it was awesome. And as I say, keep posting your questions online. The guys will come back and have a look through them and answer between now and the next session. Talking about next sessions, their next session, as Layla mentioned at the end of the presentation there, is on the 16th of November. So that's next Thursday at 1700 or 5 p.m. GMT. And that's with some of their alumni, I think. I think that's what you said, Layla.
Yeah, some of our mentors and alumni and the people who are involved in our community far and wide around the world.
Perfect. And that's going to be kind of global initiatives for a post-disposable future. And of course, Layla also said, but if you do want to find out more, get involved, volunteer, as a lot of the questions that have been coming in have said, if you head over to unschools.co or disruptdesign.co, you'll get all the information you need there. You can also tweet the guys, you can tweet us. There's huge amounts of ways that you can get involved. And as Layla said, keep badgering her and Emma. They will reply unless she's on a plane to India. And she'll be sat with Emma tomorrow, who's got herds of cows going past her windows. So it's all good. But for now, thank you very much to you both, and be sure to tune in next time. And if you are watching this on catch up, remember that you can go back and watch all of our sessions again. They'll be available for a good few weeks to come.
I love that you get to speak to the future, Rose.
I know. If you're watching on catch up, so this could be me in like 2 weeks' time. Crazy.
It's like a superpower. You can speak.
That is my superpower. See? No.
What we're thinking. Yeah.
Right. Thank you, everyone. And we'll see you again next time.
Ciao.
Thank you.